But welcome back to a new episode of the AJ Show. And if you can't tell, welcome to our second annual Zelda month. That's right, we're going back to the world of Hyrule, and we're going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda series. But what are we talking about this time around? Well, we're doing another retrospect, and this is on the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. As always, grab yourself a beverage, sit back, relax. Let's dive into this game. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Let's get right into this. In 2011, the announcement came as Skyward Sword was announced as the next console Zelda title for the Nintendo Wii. Late in the Wii's life cycle, may I add, because this game was towards the tail end of the Wii's life cycle. But they also made the announcement of this thing. Yeah, what is this thing? Well, this is what helps you play The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. It is called the Wii Motion Plus. The Wii Motion Plus. Just makes your controller look like more like a breadstick anymore with this thing. Where's the controller, by the way? It's upstairs. I couldn't find it. But this is what was used to help make this game use the gyroscopic controls to help Link with the sword movements. Because Wii Motion Controls was the big push at this time. But the Skyward Sword really focuses on the motion controls, and that's where it all comes down to. The combat system is pretty cool in this game, especially when you fight the final boss, Demise. Hand-to-hand combat for this one. Hand-to-hand combat at its finest. And I've only beaten Demise once. That's right, I've only beaten him once. Could not beat him the second or third time after a couple playthroughs of this game. But Skyward Sword is one of those games that is a love-hate game. People hate the motion controls, or people love the motion controls. People hate how linear the game is, or they don't mind it at all. I'm in the mixed bag on all of this, you know. It's one of those games that, yeah, I was excited for at launch, and I got it at Christmas of that year in 2011. And I picked it up, I played it, and I played it. I bought a strategy guide to go along with it, and really, you don't need this thing. You really don't need this thing unless you want to find everything in there. But honestly, you don't need it. It is that linear. This is one of the weirdest things about this Zelda title. I love Breath of the Wild for a reason, and the reason why I consider Breath of the Wild the best Zelda game of all time is because of the open worldness. And people will be like, well, there's a story in there. Yeah, there's a story in there. You just got to look for it. You can make your own story. That's why it's open world. But in Skyward Sword, it is all about the story. And the story is fantastic in this game. And I love the story in this game. So what is the story? What is the plot? Before I jump into the negative things about this game. The story is quite simple, really. About 1,000 years ago, and you can actually find this in the Hyrule Historia. There's actually a comic manga in here. Manga, whatever you pronounce it. Japan style. All right, Japan style art. There you go. It gives you a backstory of this thing. Here it is. Here's the cover of it, and you have to read it from back to front and right to left. That's how you read these things, just so you all know. That's how Japan reads their comics. That's how they do it. But you flip through it, and the art in here is so good. You know, the story is so good. But what is this about? Basically, there's a demon king known as Demise, conquered the land. I don't know if it's called Hyrule at this time. It probably was. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it was. But then the goddess Hylia arrives with a loft wing. A loft wing. All right, and the loft wing plays a role. There's these giant birds. They ride on birds in Skyward Sword. All right, through the sky. Yeah. So how does their place get to the sky? Well, this story tells about that in this manga. And pretty much what happens, Link is entrusted with the goddess sword to battle the Demon King Demise. All right, and they go to war. All right, they go to war, but eventually, you know, the battle kind of goes downhill. When you go through the story, you go through the comic, and they get all whatever remaining human life onto this island, and they take off into the sky, creating Skyloft. All right, and so there's a cloud barrier that protects them, you know, in the sky, and Demise is imprisoned. All right, he's imprisoned by the goddess Hylia, and that's how that all begins. And so you go to Skyward Sword 1,000 years later. Zelda is the incarnation of Hylia. Link is the incarnation of Link, obviously. But now here's this demon lord named Girahim that shows up, and he's one of my favorite antagonists. He really is. And, you know, forget Ganondorf. Girahim is where it's at. I want a sequel with him in there. Come on. He's flamboyant. He's got style, you know. And he's got a creepy tongue thing going on. Oh, it's creepy. Yeah, that happens in the very first encounter with him in the first dungeon. Yeah, that's creepy as all get out. But basically the story starts out with this, you know, you have this wing ceremony that goes on at the Knights Academy, and Link's part of this Knights Academy, and there's a few other guys that are there in the academy that are basically schoolyard bullies, led by a rooster named Groose. Yeah, he looks like a rooster to me. And we'll get into him in a bit, because basically Groose starts out as a bully. He's a villain to you, but later on in the game, you know, he becomes your friend. He becomes an ally, and he helps you out too in some parts of the game. But basically, there's a love story going on here. Zelda and Link, man, it lays it in thick with the love story with these two. Even though Groose is trying to get in on the action himself because he's after Zelda, Zelda's after Link, Girahim is after Zelda because he needs to use Zelda to resurrect his Demon King Lord Demise. And that's pretty much the story, you know. There's this black tornado that shows up, and Zelda gets thrown into the surface world. Impa from the past, all right, 1,000 years in the past shows up and basically guides Zelda along to her destiny, her place, you know, to take her place as the goddess Hylia. And Link's going after her, trying to find her, and he meets up with her a few times. And of course, you do run into the old Impa, all right? And if you look at it, it looks like she kind of pitched a tin over herself, and she's been sitting there for 1,000 years. And she literally has been. I mean, she's 1,000 years old in this game, and she runs into her past self in here. Time travel, folks. There's time travel in this game. Of course there is. And you know what? It gets stupid, too, because there's one point in this game you actually destroy Demise in the prison form by dropping an island from Skyloft to reconnect where it was at the sacred grounds, and that kills him because you use the Triforce and you wish the Triforce to destroy the Demon Lord or the Demon King. But nope, old creepy Girahim takes Zelda back 1,000 years into the past to resurrect him there, and that's where you get the final boss battle where you and Demise gets into this world and you duel it out with swords. I love it. This fight is the best. It is amazing. You better potion up too in this game too, because my gosh, you're going to take some damage because some of the bad guys in this game are going to punish you. I mean, the battle mechanic mainly, because you have to really try to watch to deflect their moves, and you have to get them where they're open, and they move around their swords and their weaponry, and there's ones that electrocute you, and it sucks because it zaps their hearts away, and it's terrible. But that's the story in a nutshell. I mean, that's pretty much what it is about. But again, it's such a great story. But the game, where it comes to the flaws, it's linear. So linear. And not that it's a bad thing, but there's not really that much exploration. I mean, if you explore Skyloft on your Loftwing, yeah, there's some islands you could go visit, but there's nothing really there. I mean, it's absolutely just empty void in the sky. And that's pretty much that. Yeah. And then you look at the 3 areas that you visit. There's only 3 land areas that you visit through the sky. They got 3 different portals that are open to go into the surface world underneath the cloud barrier. And there's the Lanayru area, there's the Eldin area, and then there's the Faron area. And each of them, if you think of it in this terminology, like Sonic games, you know how Sonic games, you know, you have a zone and you have 2 to 3 acts. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that, but a lot longer. And the dungeons don't know when to quit in this game, especially the Lanayru Desert Mining Facility. I like it, but I hate it. Because it takes an hour, and I kid you not, an hour to get through that dungeon. I thought City in the Sky in Twilight Princess was torture enough. This one takes the cake. You know, people complain about the Water Temple and Ocarina of Time. Nah. They ain't got nothing on that with these, how long these dungeons are and how cryptic and puzzling they are at times. But you know, it is a good time, but man, the game can be also a chore. It can be such a chore in this game. It takes a bit. It takes a bit to get through some of these tasks, to get through some of these levels, to get through some of these areas. It takes a little bit. But it also, you know, the key element about Skyward Sword, because again, sword is in the title. This is about the creation of the Master Sword, the blade that, man, it takes forever to get to in this game as well. You get it pretty much at the end of the game. But you start off with the Goddess Sword, and then, you know, the first, you know, half of the game, you're just using that. And then the other half of the game, you're basically getting flames, these sacred flames, to help morph your sword into the next level. And there's 3 of them. There's 3 different flames. And you have to go through trials in Sacred Realm. God, the trials of the Sacred Realm suck. I hate these things because you're basically going stealth mission in this to collect, you know, droplets out there. And if you mess up and one of those guardians awakens, they're coming after you and they're going to knock you out. You got to do the whole thing over again. This is why I hate Skyward Sword when it comes to this gameplay, because the Sacred Realms are the worst of it all. I hate that so much, and I hate how long and tedious some of the stuff you have to go through, especially when you go back to the Pharaoh area for the second time to help the water dragon out, and then you gotta go swimming. I don't like it one bit. Even though Skyward Sword has some good qualities, there is some negative qualities about it, and it's still a good game overall. It is still a great time. But 10 years later, this year, HD remake, which this has been rumored for like about a year or two, and it finally came out this year. And I'm like, do I really want to play it again? Do I really want to own this version too when I have also the copy on the Nintendo Wii? Yes, please. I want to put it in my collection. Exactly. That's how I want to do it. Because the difference on this one now, I mean, yes, this had the glorified breadstick Wii Motion Plus controller. This one gives you both options. Controller, I don't know how they did it, but they did it. You're able to use a controller in this one. And that's how I'm playing it right now. I'm playing it as a controller. But here's the thing. I've been playing this game since August. Yeah, since August. I'm still playing this game because you know why? I stopped playing it for a little bit because I got bored. That's the other problem. Is the replay value of this game, there's not much replay value to it. It's great to have for your Zelda collection. It's an amazing game. But one and done. It's one and done for me, to be quite honest. And, you know, yeah, I have to be in the mood to pick it back up and play it again. Because, again, it is a chore at times. And it's, like I said, there's such a great story element to it. The gameplay is not horrible. You know, people want to debate, argue, like, oh, I don't like the motion controls. Oh, well, now you can play with a controller. Congratulations, baby. You won this round. All right. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff about Skyward Sword, but there's also some negative things about it as well. But that's my retrospect on Skyward Sword. You know, it all came all down into this because this celebrated Zelda's 25th anniversary, and lo and behold, on the 35th anniversary, this showed up. What are you all doing over there? I'm looking forward to Breath of the Wild 2. But that's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I could probably go on and on and on about Skyward Sword, but we're going to just stop right there on that retrospect of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Take care.